I never did believe in ghosts. Never. Even with years of employment as a backcountry rescue hadn't advanced me to questioning the nature of things, largely because I was always able to rationalize it away. That all changed during the night of October 2017. I responded to the call at about 11 p.m. There was a missing hiker, a late 20s female who was lost in the Black Ridge Woods, a thick, expansive forest of sheer cliffs and drop-offs. She was named Sarah. She had been reported missing by her boyfriend since she did not return from a remote hike. She had been followed by her phone in the vicinity of an abandoned ranger station in the woods. I packed headlamp, first aid kit, radio, and left with Mark and just 2 other rescuers. The forest was eerily quiet that night. No hooting owls, no crunching leaves. Just an oppressive silence that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. We pulled up at the ranger station a little past midnight. I had expected to see the weathered old wooden building in a state of disarray. Broken windows, door hanging off a hinge. My headlamp was low when I stepped inside, and long slanting shadows crawled along the floor. That's when I heard it. A whisper. It was off-key and gravelly and barely audible above a whisper. I spun around, my heart racing. "Sarah?" I bellowed. There was no answer. Mark and Jess were out front sweeping down the length of the fence line. I was alone. I moved a little closer to the corner, grinding glass beneath my boots. The smell was of mildew and something else, something metallic, like blood. And then I saw it. Scratches. Deep, insane claw marks etched into the wood floorboards, cutting diagonally to a trapdoor that I had no idea was there. It was half open. My radio crackled. "Hey, you find anything?" Mark's voice. I swallowed hard. "Yeah, there's a trapdoor. I think she might be down below." I pushed the door open. A rickety, narrow staircase went down into blackness. Smelled worse in here, rotten earth rot. I stepped down one, then the next. The whispers began again. "Please help." Sarah's voice. No question about it. "Sarah, we're here. Hold on." I yelled, racing down the stairs. The basement was small, maybe 10 feet across. My headlamp, once again, thrashed about madly, casting bad yellow light onto clumps of the room. And then I saw her. Sarah huddled in the corner, turned away from me, knees up into her arms. She rocked slowly back and forth, hair dirty and matted. "Sarah," I whispered, taking a step forward. "It's all right. We're here to take you home." She didn't stir. I reached out my fingers along her shoulder, and she moved her head. Not all the way, just so I could see her profile in the poor light. Her mouth was stitched up. Thick, coarse stitches cut horizontally across her lips, the skin around them red and swollen. Her eyes were wide, scared, pleading. I sat back, panting. What the heck? What the heck? And then I heard it. A wet, slow clicking sound, as if something was crawling along the floor. From the darkness at the back of Sarah, a shape started to emerge. White, bony, its arms too long, its fingers tipped in pointed nails. Its face, God's face, no mouth, just pulled out smooth skin where its lips should be. It whispered anyway, a voice that wasn't a voice coming into my head direct. "You shouldn't have come down here." I ran. I don't remember running up the stairs. I remember remembering only that I had burst out of the ranger station, crying Mark and Jess's names. They saw my face, and they didn't question me. We actually ran for the trailhead. It wasn't until we were getting close to the trucks that I ever spoke. "We have to call the police," I huffed. "There's something in the woods. Something not human." Jess glared at me. "What about Sarah?" I'd opened my mouth and just stood there frozen. For a moment, on the edge of the trees, just beyond the reach of our headlights, stood Sarah. Her lips were still stitched shut, and she was smiling through the stitches. The police went out to check the ranger station, the next day. They discovered nothing, no trapdoor, no cellar. Only an empty, crumbling shack. Sarah was discovered 7 days later, miles from the place we'd left her. Exposure, they said, the coroner decided. But I knew what I knew. And at night, when I'm in bed, wide awake, I can still hear the whispering. You shouldn't have come down here. And I do know one day I'll have to go back. My name is Daniel Hartman, and I was a volunteer search and rescue officer for 6 years in the Pacific Northwest. I've witnessed things in those woods that still give me nightmares at night, things that cannot be explained. But one case in particular bothers me more than any other. It was the end of October, and the air reeked of wet pine and decaying leaves. The dispatcher called just after midnight. A missing hiker last spotted near Black Hollow, a place locals steered clear of without ever mentioning why. The formal report indicated that the man, a college student named Ethan Cole, had ventured off trail to take wildlife photos and failed to return. I should have listened to my instincts when I initially viewed the coordinates. Black Hollow was not merely isolated, it was incorrect. The trees stood too densely, their branches tangled with a skeletal finger-like grasp. The earth was abnormally quiet, no birds sang, no leaves crunched, only a heavy, expectant quiet. My friends and I called out to him, shouting Ethan's name. After what seemed like hours of looking, we came across his backpack by a creek. The straps were not ripped by any animal, but torn cut actually. His camera remained within the final picture of a blurry person standing between the trees, its face hidden behind shadows. And then we heard a cry, not from the distance, but near, too near. It didn't sound like a human cry. It was growling, gasping, as if something were attempting to impersonate agony. We tracked the sound to an opening, and there between the pines crouched an old cabin, its roof drooping, its windows boarded up, and the front door standing open just far enough to admit darkness within. That's when the radio static began. Comms crackled, went dead. No signal, no GPS, silence. The team leader, a grizzled old vet by the name of Harris, told us to check the cabin. If he's injured in there, we can't leave him. The second I walked in, the stench greeted me, stinking meat and damp soil. The creaking floorboards beneath my feet, and the air was heavy with the sort of cold that permeates bone. We found Ethan, or what remained of him. He was curled in the corner, his skin waxy and gray. His eyes were wide, frozen in terror. But the worst part, his mouth was stitched shut. Thin, crude sutures pulled his lips together in a grotesque smile. Harris grabbed my arm. We're leaving. Now. Then the door slammed shut behind us. The beam of the flashlights slashes through the blackness, shaking in our hands. Something stirred in the darkness, a slow, shuffling motion. Then a whisper, "You shouldn't be here." It did not originate from one point. It was everywhere, the walls, the ground, the air itself. A figure materialized from the back room. I thought it was a man, tall, slouching. But its arms were too long, its elbows bending at unnatural angles. It entered into the faint light, and I got a look at its face. It didn't have a mouth, just stretched, smooth skin where lips ought to have been. Harris drew his gun. The creature cocked its head, then attacked. The shot was soundless in the room. The monster fell over, but did not go down. It was laughing, a guttural, choking sound before it was gone into blackness. We ran. We couldn't make the door, so we busted out a boarded window and thudded out into the night. Behind us, the cabin creaked as though some force was against the walls trying to get through. We didn't rest until we reached the trailhead. The radios flickered back to life with a burst of panicked voices. Backup was en route, but when the sheriff's crew arrived at the cabin, the following day it vanished. No building, no tracks, just an empty clearing. Ethan's autopsy showed something impossible. He had been dead for at least 7 days before we discovered him. But his parents insisted he had only been missing for 2 days. The official investigation labeled it an animal attack. The last photo taken by the camera was corrupted. The case was closed. But I know what I saw. At times when I'm by myself in the forest, I hear whispers. And I know Black Hollow is still waiting. I never believed in ghosts. Not until the night I was summoned to extract a family stuck within a home that would not release them. I am Jake, and I've been a search and rescue respondent for over 10 years. I've pulled people out of mine accidents, flooded basements, and car accidents. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened at the Vassar Mansion. It started with a frantic 911 call. A mother, Sarah Vassar, whispered into the phone, "We're locked inside. The doors won't open. The windows won't break. Something is in here with us." The dispatcher had taken it as a break-in. But the police who arrived there were discovered breaking into the home. Typical. Quiet. No breaking and entering. But the family, Sarah, husband Mark, and the 2 kids were screaming indoors, beating against the windows like a caged animal. That is when they called us. When we arrived, the atmosphere near the Vassar house was off. Dense, heavier than air anywhere else we'd been that morning. Stagnant. The front door creaked open, but when we stepped inside, air chilled. My breath was frosted before my face. "Hello, Sarah, Mark," I bellowed, voice bouncing off walls, then walls again. Silent, but something scratching on walls. We proceeded a step further within the house. The living room was in disarray, splintered sofa, broken glass, shards all over the floor, torn claw marks on the wooden floor. And upstairs sounded children laughing. Laughing as if having fun. Sarcasm. We rushed up the stairs. The corridor was longer than it should have been. Doors were closing on their own. Walls gasped heavily. Way down the hallway at the far end of the hall was a small girl in a doorway with her back to us. "Emily," I said, recalling that I had seen her on the missing persons list. She turned around too far. Her neck cracked. "You shouldn't be here," she wheezed. And then the door shut automatically. We discovered Sarah and Mark cowering in their bedroom. They were white-faced, wild-eyed. "It's in the walls." Sarah had screamed. "It watches us when we sleep." Mark pinched my arm, fingernails digging into arm. "Sound like our voices. Pleads for help. Don't listen." Before I could question him what he was quoting, there had been a voice scream, downstairs my voice. "Jake, help me. I'm stuck." My blood froze. My partner Ryan swore. "What the hell did that?" Sarah cried openly. "It learns. It plays." And the lights were off. Something creeped through the ceiling in the darkness. We had to extract them. Immediately, Ryan and I escorted the family downstairs. The air clung to us as though you had a plow through tar. About halfway down, Emily once again appeared standing at the base of the stairs with black, hollowed out eyes staring up at us. "Stay with us," she murmured, but not her voice. Something older. Sarah shrieked. "That's not my daughter." The Emily thing smiled, jaws snapping snake fashion. Walls screamed out. Plaster ripped in two. Fingers, bony white finger, long fingers probed between the cracks and attempted to enclose us. We ran away. The front door was closed. No handle, no hinges, solid unbroken even wood. Ryan attempted to smash a window using his baton, but glass mended instantly under his gaze. Mark breathed loudly. "It won't let us go out." And I recalled the cellar. Old Coal Chute police had said, maybe it might open outside. We went down the thing, which wasn't Emily skittering behind us laughing. The basement was worse. Handprints smudged walls child-sized by dozens. An old swing set in the middle hung bare. In the corner, little door, coal chute. Ryan opened it wide. "Go. Now." Sarah and Mark ushered the children inside. Ryan followed, and when I attempted to go around to its side, something had wrapped around my ankle. Emily cowered in the corner where the stairs blended together under the landing, sobbing. It made me hide. It hurts when I try to leave. I yank her loose. Someplace out of view behind us, the creature, which had been manipulating her face, hissed, its body extending far beyond the norm as it came after us. I shoved Emily into the chute and shoved after. The very last thing I can recall hearing fleeing from was the house itself, screaming with fury. The Vassars fled alive, but never came back. The house remains, vacant, waiting. Nights, there are nights when people say they hear kids laughing, and somebody beating on their pains. And me? I wake up still hearing my own voice crying out for assistance. "Jake, come back, we're still inside."